the TIMFD podcast. Today is my favorite day is about appreciating every day as it comes, no matter what life throws at us. We hope that this podcast speaks to you. And if it does, please like, share, and comment. Now let's find out why today is our favorite day this week.
Hey everybody, today is my favorite day, and I'm here with Bill today, and we're going to be talking about something that may make sense to a lot of people, I would imagine, and that is quickly how to protect yourself from the temptations of success. So let's go over that. First of all, Bill, background, I've known you for a long time, but
Yep.
Some of these people may not know you, so go ahead.
Well, first off, thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah.
And we hope that everybody has had some successes or wants to have successes, and then you go, okay, what happens?
Yeah.
A little bit of myself. I grew up in the south side of Chicago. I was a football player in high school and college. Got a chance to play college football. When I graduated,
you played quarterback.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
And then when I graduated, I went into coaching because coaches and teachers had really made the biggest difference in my life. And I did believe I could use the game of football to teach boys to be men and men to be leaders by using the game of football. Had an opportunity to coach in Europe, then I coached in the United States, and met my wife. She was a teacher and coach at a high school that I was coaching at.
Really?
Go figure, huh?
Wow.
So we have that in common as well, being a coach.
I remember she was running in West. We used to live in West Chase, and you guys are still there.
Yeah.
And she would run that West Chase all the time, see her and wave, and I go, better you than me.
I got to tell you, so my wife is very focused. So when she ran, she almost ran angry. You know what I mean? So she was,
she did.
I had an opportunity to coach for 5 years, and then being married, realized we didn't know anything about finances, and I got into financial services by accident. And I've now been in financial services in the insurance and investment world for going on now 29 years. And
really, that long?
Yeah, go figure. Go figure.
And right now, you helped in getting FinFit going, right? Okay, so tell me what you do with that.
So the name of the company is FinFit Life, and it stands for financial fitness, physical fitness, and the lifestyle to enjoy it. So what the heck does that mean? Usually people only think about fitness in their own, getting healthy and, into the gym and things of that sort. But what we found is that financial fitness, getting your money working for you, is equally as important as getting your body to you. So from a biblical standpoint, we took it from the biblical principles of, if I can get the heart right, I can get the money right.
Absolutely.
And if I can get the money right, I always get the heart right.
Absolutely.
If my body is the temple in which I worship, and more importantly, how I interact with people in the world, if I can take good care of that, then I sure as heck can have an opportunity to have a great life. And the lifestyle to enjoy it means living a life of service. And what we found is that we are the only, right now that I know of, for the last 5 years, we're the only financial services company that incentivizes healthy living through our products and services.
Yes, I remember that.
So we're very excited about what we do and how we do it.
That's cool. And you guys are in different countries right now too?
So we're in 48 states here, and we're in Canada and Puerto Rico, and we continue to look to expand our global footprint. But the good part is we found that people are people. Doesn't matter where you're at in the world.
Doesn't matter.
So we can help people. When we're in their country, we can help them.
So tell us what you define as success.
Great question. Success seems to be one of those moving targets. You know what I mean?
For everyone, it seems to be different.
So the simple thing is, success is usually you having a desired outcome and you hit it.
Yeah.
If you're the easiest thing to do in sports, hey, we want to win the championship. I win the championship, I achieve the goal. But it usually is winning at least a game or whatever.
Yes.
For me, success used to be all about the money.
Yeah.
I was being an athlete.
Yeah.
There's a scoreboard. Yep. And in business, guess what the
There's
scoreboard is?
There's a scoreboard.
It's money.
Yes, it is.
So the hard part is it's really easy to go just and focus on the dollars and cents, but there's usually, I now define success in 3 different areas. Obviously, the financial, due to business, you have to stay in business to be in business, right?
You do.
And the second is relationships. Are my relationships growing? Specifically the ones that matter, like my family, my business relationships, and my personal relationships.
Sure.
And then the third one is then how am I doing with my service to what I said, my commitments to the things I said I was going to do.
Got it.
And if I can do those 3 things, then I really do consider myself successful.
Okay, good. So now we talk about, let's go from a definition of that, but let's talk about the temptations that are there when it comes to success. Ego and pride become a major. And both of us, you competed in football.
I've lived it. Sometimes I'm still there.
And I competed in track and field in college myself. So the two of us do understand the athletic side of it, of the ego that just It's all me, myself, and I, man. I've got to get my body in the way, my mind, my body, and I got to beat everybody else, right? I mean, that's kind of the idea.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
First, to go one step into the pride piece.
Yeah.
You don't even realize how prideful you become when you start to become successful because you go, oh, it's just confidence. But there's a difference between confidence and pridefulness.
Yes.
And usually it comes, hey, I want to win. And people that are winners, usually they don't like winning as much as they hate losing. They just hate losing, you know.
Losing.
And I can attest to that.
I can't stand losing in anything.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, even if it's card or dominoes or whatever.
I just played a game of Cranium, this game Cranium, with the men and the women at a party that we just did. And there were three of the men, they were just, you could tell, just high type A's and had to win. We were wanting to crush the women.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
I went, really, what are we doing? You know, after the game, but we still high-fived each other. And just,
of course.
So I get it.
Yeah, the way that I have found pride always sneaking in is it's either all about me, or it becomes all about the reputation and the respect and things of that sort. And when there was a guy named Mike Brooks. He was a very dear mentor of mine. He said, Bill, how come you're always looking for that like data boy, that recognition? And I said, what are you talking about? He says, you do it all the time. And I said, well, give me an example. And he goes, I can't yet, but when it comes up, I'll do it. And sure enough, you know, in our discussion, it came up again. And he said, where does that come from? And this is my response to him. I was trained that whenever you're in speaking engagement or you ever walk into a room, you want everybody to feel your presence.
Okay.
And he said, well, what if you walked into the room and nobody knew who you were?
Yeah.
And you did your thing. You shook hands and kissed babies and said hello to everybody.
Basically.
And you did what you normally do.
Yes.
And you'd leave and everyone goes, hey, who was that guy?
Yeah.
Would you be okay with that? And I honestly had to answer the question, no. I wouldn't be. They need to know who I am. And he said, there's my friends of pride. There's pride.
Absolutely.
And it happens everywhere.
By the way, in the pastor world, that is a big problem among everyone.
Yeah.
Because you get caught up into that. And it's a danger because it could affect the marriage. It could affect a lot of things. I know Tanya came to me early on in our church, and I was doing sermons the way I wanted everyone to respect me. In the way I was doing it. It sounds kind of funny, but that's what guys do. They get caught up into the ego of that, right? And she looked at me and said, David, do you want me to come to your church? I mean, like, we're early in the church. I'm looking at her going, of course. And she goes, then you got to stop preaching to you because you're trying to make everyone pat you on the back and say, you're awesome.
Yeah.
And she goes, I don't understand what you're even doing.
Yeah.
Make it practical.
Yeah.
And that was hard to hear that from the beginning. And I know that kind of stuff happens within the business world.
It's interesting because there's great example of Stephen Covey. Okay. I had a chance to interact very much with his organization, and I got a chance to see him speak several times. And he had a practice that whenever he gave a speech or he gave a message, he never stayed. He always left. And I had an opportunity. He spoke at one of the churches when I was in Atlanta. Yeah. And I got a chance to do a luncheon with him after, and I'd asked him, Mr. Covey, how come you always leave? Yeah. And he said, I never want to be the messenger above the message. Yeah. He said, and pride for me is that when I stand there and they tell me how great I am, they forget about the message. And it's always stayed with me. Yeah. Always stayed with me.
What's funny is I know for me, I learned very quickly. If someone says, wow, that was great, there's about at the other side that's saying that was horrible.
Of course.
And what I do is just kind of go, it doesn't matter. Whatever God wants is, and that gives me a lot of peace now. Yeah. Now that I'm older, now when I was younger, that was harder. Yeah. But now it's like, I'm going to do what I know God wants me to do, and then I'm going to say hi to everybody. So I'll go the complete opposite of him. I want to be around people, but it's more about just loving on folks. And I really don't care what they're saying to me about that.
Quite honestly, there's you got to find your groove. Yep. Because some people are tilted one way versus the other. Yes. Some people are introverted. Some people are extroverted. Yes. And obviously Stephen Covey was more introverted than he was extroverted. Yeah.
And there's a lot of pastors like that, just so you know. And in the business world, the introverts won't interact too much with everybody because they're so focused. My wife's like this, so focused on what they're going to speak about. And then afterwards, they're exhausted. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Still do an awesome job, but exhausted. For me, I need to be saying hi to people beforehand to slow me down.
That energizes you too.
And it also slows me down to get me stable to go, okay, I know what I'm going to be talking about. God has already shown that to me. I've studied it. Yeah. Now it's a matter of getting out there. For you, you're an outgoing guy. I mean, you could go out and say hi to, to a rock. It looks like,
Might not talk to me, but I'll be talking to it, right?
Exactly. Because I see that at church, and that's awesome because that's how I'm built. How does that work on a larger scale? Because, obviously this is not a large scale. You're in a large scale situation and have been. Yeah. And the temptations that come on a large scale may be the same as a small scale, but tell me, what would some of those be?
There's let me touch on a point of success that is really critical for people.
Okay.
You can have small successes or big successes, and as you start getting successes, you start getting momentum. Yep. And when you start building momentum in your life, you kind of go into this flow state. It just, things start to click for you, and all of a sudden things start attracting to you.
Yep.
And I've lived my life by the saying that when I change, everything around me changes, and when I get better, everything around me gets better. And there's several biblical principles in that in terms of life transformation. When you meet Christ, he calls you by name.
That's right.
It changes your life.
That's right.
All of a sudden everything changes. When you're going through that momentum part and these things are starting to be attracted to you, it's really easy to think that you deserve this. Whatever it is, I deserve the glory. I deserve that.
Yeah.
And the second part of that is when you start going on that journey to get some success, you'll realize that people then will start putting you into a different category.
Oh, they put you on a pedestal.
Absolutely.
And I know that for you were in a very large business.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were the man. And there's a lot of guys that are the man, and I get that. But you were one of those kind of guys, and you are today in a different way because I think your mindset's different. But back then, your mindset was Mr. Power, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly where most people end up. Pridefulness comes in that two pieces of power and dominance.
Yes.
And or it's all about me. And I like it when I can take a step back. It's called the self-deprecation. I'll just take a step back and I'll pretend like I'm not, I'm very humble, and all of a sudden, you know what I mean?
My humility.
Yeah, exactly. But give it to me more. That really is a thing. It's a thing.
I know it is.
It's
and that's
thing.
The funny part. So for you have this success now with FinFit. You're doing what I think you really are called to do. Yeah, you're kind of like the pastor to your company. I look at it that way. Yeah. I remember you and I talking about that.
I do.
And I see that. I look at pastors as I know that they're very imperfect, because I am. I know that they have the same ego problems, the same temptations, the same struggles as anyone else. So I never look at pastors or business leaders, and I never look at them and go, wow, look at them. All I do is I look and go, wow, yep, same guy is going to, if he doesn't have his head on straight and looking at Jesus, could get torn down quickly.
That's right.
Right?
No, without a doubt.
And I know you experienced that.
Without a doubt.
You were at a high place.
At the peak of my professional apex.
Yes.
I was at the lowest I was morally, spiritually, emotionally. And,
How does that happen?
Drug.
How does
my
that
drug
happen?
was power.
Oh, okay.
That was my drug. That was my drug. And it shows up in a lot of different areas. What I found, so there's now, what I love about Jesus and I love about God is he's a God of second chances.
Absolutely.
And transformation is real if you submit. And there's obviously 2 Chronicles 7:14 is my verse.
A big deal.
It's a big deal. The healing of the land means that you've changed. And there's two main points I want to touch on this. In that process, what kept me on the straight and narrow is I never wanted to lose God's favor.
Yeah.
God's favor, when he gives you that second chance, it gives you freedom, which is unbelievable. But the second is you now value covenant relationships totally differently. And the only way that you can really stay out of harm's way when you do have some success is you need to have a covenant relationship with people around you that will keep you on the straight and narrow. And I remember there was I don't know if it's true or not, but I believe it was one of the Caesars, the great Caesar story is that as he was walking, pretending he was God, there was a man whispering in his ear and saying, "You're only a man."
That's right.
You're only a man.
That's it.
And that's a covenant relationship is that they want the best for you, but they also want to make sure that you understand you are who you are. You've been given gifts and those responsibilities to be true to those gifts. And your calling is critical.
You need to know people that know you. When I say know, I'm talking about the KNOW. They know you, but also the know people, the NO people.
That's right.
That are okay is saying, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
That's right.
And Michael Jackson, Prince, these are great, musicians and singers that had much power, but they didn't have any know people around them.
Unfortunately.
And because of that, they died young because people could have stopped.
Very true.
Some of that stuff. So that happens in the business world. We know that.
It sure does.
And I know for when you say 2 Chronicles 7:14, it's just so you know, it's if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I'll hear from heaven, forgive their sins, heal their land.
And
right?
heal their land. That's exactly right.
That's a gigantic verse and so powerful. And that's something you put to your mind.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. What has kept me on the straight and narrow is God has given people that follow him 3 steps, 3 tools, not steps, 3 tools. The first tool is God's word.
Yep.
When you know the words, and in that word is the promises. And if you understand the promises, he always delivers on the promises. So that keeps you on a straight and narrow. The second is covenant relationships.
Yep.
Those relationships, God sends people out 2 by 2. He never lets you go by yourself unless he is with you to put you in an isolated form to make transformation in your life.
Yes.
And I felt that because sometimes you have to be still and know he's God.
Yes.
But the third one is the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
That tool of understanding that when God comes in you and you submit to his will, man, all of a sudden magic happens.
That's right.
And that's where willpower, self-control comes in. And where I see pridefulness and issues that go on with very successful business people is there's usually a lack of self-control in one or more areas of their life.
So the fruit of what he's talking about is the fruit of the Spirit.
Yes.
The Galatians 5, the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness,
and self-control. That's right.
And that is a gigantic problem.
Yes.
And without a personal relationship with Jesus, so we're talking not just for Christians because we're both Christians, but talking for business people, corporate people, moms or dads, right? Anybody who's in charge of anybody. Without Jesus, we can all fall bad. And we could all, without Jesus, when we run into the worst of worsts, we can fall and never get out of that pit, which we've seen that happen.
That's
before,
right.
Right.
That's right.
I know for me, personally, when we were going through some really difficult times, a loss of a child, cancer, whatever, there was a number of different things that we ran into. There's a program here called Celebrate Recovery that Tanya and I needed. We needed to be able to be with people that some of them were no people.
Sure,
actually a lot of them, the KNOW know us,
right.
But there was a good number of them that were also no people that said, you don't need to keep going down that dark hole.
Yeah.
That you need to stop. There was whining going on, but also the same person that could put a arm around you and say, it's okay.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And you've experienced that with your business, with guys in the business world. Mm-hmm. So when you went through the Atlanta experience and really at a high peak, how were you able to get to a place where you are now? Because, I mean, you've traveled a pretty good road here and one that your wife's very excited about.
Yeah.
And your kids are very excited about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I just want to encourage some of the guys in here. So
I appreciate it. And I will, sometimes when you start talking about Jesus, it can turn people one way or the other.
Yes, it can.
And what I always use the word is biblical principles.
That's right.
I say, listen, I abide my life by biblical principles. And to your question, I'm in an environment of my life, a section of my life, season of my life, that my kids are getting to see me build a business.
Yes.
And it's totally changed their perspective on what work means. It's not just about money, it's about purpose, intentionality. And actually all 3 of my children are entrepreneurial.
Yep.
They're building their own companies, they're starting their own companies. It's unbelievable. The second is there's a renewed, because of biblical principles, there's been a renewed commitment of listening and understanding what it means to be a husband, call it the head of the household, to my wife. Yeah. And it's to give my life for that.
Yes.
And just as Christ gave it for the church, I'm to do that for my wife.
Ephesians chapter 5.
Chapter 5, that's right.
Huge, big deal. Yeah.
What's interesting, though, about pridefulness, especially when you have success, is you don't seek the voice in which God put in your life to keep you humble, which is usually your spouse. You almost want to quiet that voice, And I've respected it.
I've heard a lot of businessmen say, I don't need to listen to her. I'm going, no, that's the person you need to listen to.
The most.
Yes.
And usually, and almost 9 times out of 10, my wife doesn't care about the scoreboard of money and all this.
Not at all.
No. She's like, hey, listen, it's about the family. It's about us. It's about this.
Yes.
It's about the things that matter.
Marianne is all about that relationship being
without
good.
a doubt. And if you got a chance to meet my wife, she's as good and kind as there is. She really is.
You're very fortunate, man. I have the same one. You need that person in your life.
And they're both stoic in a way.
Yes, they are.
The last thing I'll say about the success principle with when you face it is that choose your friends wisely.
Yep.
You'll be surprised. As you know, at the peak of my business prowess, so to speak, at that corporate America piece, the people that I thought were closest to me were the ones that were et tu brute, that were stabbing you in the back, because in the corporate world, it's eat your boss to get your job.
Correct.
That's how it works. Correct. And then power is really important, because then you don't want people messing with you so that they don't try to eat you.
Correct.
And the opposite is true in servant leadership. And as you become more of a servant leader, you become more valuable to all of the people, not just to the inner circle. And that would be some of the things I would tell everybody listening here is know that the biblical principles lead down the path of servant leadership, and servant leadership is the only way to serve and go to the top.
So how do you serve in your business in FinFit? Tell me some things that you do. I mean, not to pat yourself on the back, but just so other men and women may be able to hear this and go, oh, maybe I need to look at that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm actually struggling with this for a second.
That's okay.
The 3 things that God, that Jesus says we should do is for the poor, for the homeless, and for the imprisoned.
Yes.
And I have a real hard time. I don't know if I'm called to serve them the way that maybe others have. So I'm struggling. Like, am I serving or am I not? And then when I think about what God has called me to do with my job, what I'm doing with my company, my life, is that I'm to show how biblical principles are applied in real business scenarios, in real life scenarios.
I believe that.
And I have, it's come up in a number of scenarios where ethics were over economics, where caring and personal care was more important than the general care. And there was also making hard decisions to say no. That, hey, this is not the way we're going to go. We're going to go this way. And I would say this from a business perspective, it always helps when you have what I'll call core values. And we have 6 of them. But there's one that trumps everything else. Okay. And that one is to do the right thing the right way.
That's biblical.
Exactly. And if you don't have that, if you don't have that governing guide, it's really hard. It's really easy to do what's easy and profitable, but not for the long run, but for the short run.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so doing the right thing is vital.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for you, I believe that you are to be, it sounds funny, but the evangelist partially within your business. And when I say evangelist, do the right thing. Do the right thing and be somebody that imperfect, knows he's imperfect. Hey, I don't have this all down.
That's exactly right.
But I'm striving to become more like Christ. If you want to know more about that, great. If you don't, great. Still going to hire you. Still going to, we're going to get you out there and do your job, right?
Yeah.
Just do it well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you talked about your kids real quick here, because I know your kids, and I know one that has just, I've been really impressed with, which is Rachel.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And Roots, her particular company, the Roots agency, I think it's
Roots
called.
Marketing.
Roots Marketing. That's right, because I have her on all my stuff. As a matter of fact, when they talk about how to do things, I go and take it and then use it. I tell her all the time. So she's taken a lot of your principles of what you have done in business, and I think because she saw you in your lowest spot and also seen you in some of your greatest spots, and she sees that. I think she saw that and went, wow, this is pretty amazing, and has followed that.
Yeah, I've been very, very grateful that God has opened an opportunity for repair of and healing. Yeah. and to the big part is that she's got a chance to see the hand of God actively working in people's lives, even when they don't even know it's working.
Absolutely.
It's really cool. Thank you for saying that. And what is also interesting about Rachel is her company, we adopted this thing called the EOS system, which stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's a it's a business system that helps you get issues on the table and then real solutions to those issues. And it keeps that process going. And she's seen it operate for the last 2 years, and she just applied it to her business, and all of a sudden her business changed. Now, why is that important? A lot of times when you have success, that you rest and rely on momentum, and you stop looking at the things that you need to be looking at to address them, which are many of the issues. And what's really cool about all of my children is they see me doing that in my real life, in my home life. When I say, when you change, everything around you changes. When you get better, everything around you gets better. There are always things that God is going to point out to you, or that your spouse will point out to you, to say, you might want to take a look at this. Yeah. And usually that's the time when you can get sharper. And one last thing I'll mention, when you have momentum and success, it's really easy to get lazy. It's really easy to get lazy.
I've heard that.
Lazy with your words, lazy with your thinking, lazy with your emotions, lazy with the way that you execute. And that is the first chink of the armor that can take somebody down.
So what I'd like to do is the EOS, for one, I'm going to talk to you about that because I'd like to implement that within the church and our management team. So I do need to talk to you about that. That'd
be very helpful.
Yeah, that would be a good thing. Because we are growing and we need to take this momentum and keep it. Yep. And so, because I believe God has some cool things for us, just like he has, I know, some cool things for you.
Absolutely.
And so we'll have you, if you don't mind, we'll have you on a different time for that.
No problem.
But my thing is that for you, what I have seen is someone that has hit the highest of highs, really, as I look at that, some of the lowest of lows, and back up high again, but with a totally different way of thinking. I've known you for a long time.
We have. We've known each other almost 30 years.
I know. And I've seen the big change, and I've seen the big change in me too. Yeah. So, I mean, but it's really neat to see see the success taking place in your life and honestly in your kids' life and with your wife. Because your marriage is in a good place, man.
Yeah,
it's awesome, isn't it?
It's a really cool thing.
I know
and I don't take it for granted.
Oh no, you can't.
No.
And she smiles. She's smile lady now.
Yeah.
At one time she wasn't so much, and now she's very much. Like we had her greeting last week. I talked about service, and then I called her up and said, "Hey, can you serve?" And she's going, wow.
And she said, who knew? She's Mrs. Greeter.
She's now Mrs. Greeter. But she was one big smile out there.
Yes.
And just you can see the joy in her. That has a lot to do with what's happened with you, what's happened with God in you, and what Jesus has done, and Holy Spirit living in you.
Yeah.
And getting out there and having a good time.
Yeah.
And so I want to compliment you on that.
Thank you.
You have experienced success. You've experienced success in different ways. And the success I see now is the success of a man who's seeking Jesus imperfectly as you are. And same with me.
Yeah.
There are days, for me, last night was not a good night. I was like grumpy and everything else in the sun. But I'm okay. I'm good with telling people that I have bad days all the time because that's normal.
Yeah, let me make one comment on this. That what you just described, our company right now, we're growing. And we've got a lot of really good things happening. But we're not growing to the way that our potential could be. So it's really easy. And we have a lot of issues that are going on. Marketplaces change. Everybody's. Yeah. And I had a talk with our whole team, our internal home office team. And I said, I want you to know this is going to be really hard. Yeah. And you're going to go through a lot of trials and tribulations and struggles. And I want you to know that the very best work is going to come from this, and you're not even going to know it. Yeah. And the reason why is because now you're not seeking for the glory, you're seeking for the accomplishment to solve the problem.
Yes.
And it just, I want to make one comment about what really impressed me in you and in the church, and what I saw is when the lowest part of the church experience, and I watched how you handled it, and I watched how you had the leadership team within the church handle it.
Yeah.
That was a true demonstration of being mindful, of being God-centered, and being gracious and merciful at the same time as trying to say, I am not walking away from my accountability.
Nope.
And that truly was a stroke of genius, but it was also a stroke of trust and leadership that I want to tell you very, very
appreciate that. Thank you. That was a very difficult time, to say the least.
Yes, it was.
It was a very difficult time. We've talked about this before in our podcasts, but yes, that was a very difficult time within the church. We were really booming at that time.
Yes.
And like any business or anything, you run into something in a church. It happened to be a sexual sin of one of our staff members, and it just It was devastating.
And
devastating.
That's the worst part when you have momentum and you run into the wall. You
Yes.
run in full force, and boy, it's
It
ugly.
hurt.
It's
It
ugly.
hurt.
It's ugly.
But we dealt with it. We're still here. We're seeing
did the right
recovery.
thing the
Yep.
right way,
Yep.
and you did it with the right intentions,
Yep.
and very, very God
And
honoring.
that's what we got to do.
That's right.
And so the neat part about this is that both of us have seen the highs and the lows.
Yes.
And the key is that our relationship with the Lord, we just got to have that. And then we take those principles
That's right.
and put them to whatever we're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
So thank you for being here. I appreciate it, man.
My pleasure.
So this is Today is My Favorite Day. You want to know more about Bill? I'll have a bunch of his links on our podcast, so then you can go see it. By the way, you have a podcast. It's called
Fit Talks.
Fit Talks. I love them, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
So I've subscribed to it. They're really good. So
Thank
just
you.
make sure you go check that out. Thank you again.
My
Take
pleasure.
it easy, guys.
See you
Have a
guys.
great day.
Thank you for listening to TIMFD, Today is My Favorite Day. Views, comments, and opinions are those of the host and guest alone. TIMFD is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed.